The division bells are rung and resume after 10 minutes. Grand Committee on the Financial Services and Markets Bill, in Clause 24, Amendment 55, the Lord Moylan.
My Lords, I rise to move Amendment 55 in my name and to speak to Amendment 241 also in my name. I'm hoping that this will be actually possibly the least controversial mini-debate in the course of this bill, because there is nobody, I think, in committee, my Lords, who is other than opposed to financial exclusion. We favour financial inclusion, especially in a modern digital age. By financial inclusion, what is normally meant is the opportunity for people of limited means or living in marginalised circumstances to participate in the financial and banking system, something that is all the more necessary now that people are so dependent on it and on access to it, not least for benefits but also for other ordinary means of getting about in life and so forth. And who can be against that? And there are a number of amendments in this group that tend towards strengthening the obligations on the regulators to promote financial inclusion, and I'm happy to lend my general support to them. Coming to Amendments 55 and 241 in my name, they relate to a different sort of financial exclusion, one that has grown up over the last 25 or 30 years. And that is the general tendency to exclude the retail investor from the opportunities to invest in regulated products. So that we have, for example, gone from a situation 30 years ago where it was possible to buy gilts, UK government bonds, at the post office, or to bid for new issues of gilts at an average price through cutting a coupon in the newspaper, to a situation where it's actually very difficult for ordinary people to buy government bonds. In the case of corporate bonds, highly rated corporate bonds, an EU regulation incorporated from their prospectus directive has set the minimum denomination of new issues of bonds at €100,000. And the result is that as far as sterling bonds are concerned, we've applied that, of course, and the result is, as far as sterling bonds are concerned, there are now very, very few that are in denomination small enough for ordinary investors to buy, and even they are long-dated issues that are running off. So soon there will be no more unless we take some action about it. The days of SID are long since gone, because when companies nowadays do new share issues, what have come to be known as IPOs, initial public offerings, or even subsequent offerings, corporate treasurers are simply uninterested in engaging with retail investors, partly because the burden of additional regulation involved deters them from doing so, and so shares are generally placed in private placements with institutional investors because it's easier and quicker. No room, indeed, for the retail investor. And this has had some... there have been two reasons for this. The first, I think, is over-caution on the part of regulators. Because they feel responsible for regulated investments, they don't want anyone to lose any money unless they're a really big player. So smaller players like retail investors, the easiest way of preventing them from losing money and complaining is to prevent them from investing in the first place. The second reason, as I say, is the reluctance of corporate investors to engage, because they have no corporate treasurers to engage with the retail market, because they have no incentive to do so, and only additional burdens. This might have been motivated by a good sentiment for protecting investors, but the results have been completely perverse, because nothing prevents retail investors from investing in unregulated investments. And so we see people quite freely out there putting their money into spread betting, contracts for the difference, which is similar and to spread betting, and even some things misleadingly known as mini-bonds, on which they regularly lose their shirts. Indeed, there was one issue of mini-bonds, London and Capital, which was unregulated, but it was ambivalent whether the regulator had actually regulated it or not. And noble lords will recall that last year we had to pass a special act of Parliament in order to allow the Treasury to indemnify those investors because potentially they had been misled as to what the legal position was. The core point was not simply that we had to indemnify them. The core point was that they'd been perfectly able to invest in them and lose their shirts on them. Whereas we stop them, the regulators prevent them, circumstances prevent them from investing in much safer and regulated products. Now, Amendment 55 in my name, and I'm grateful for the support of my noble friends Lord Trenchard and Naseby and the noble Baroness Lady Kramer, puts a new objective on the Prudential Regulatory Authority to ensure that, as part of their work, they aim to minimise the barriers to retail participation in regulated products in the financial markets. And Amendment 241 deals specifically with the narrow point that denominations of corporate bonds are required at the moment to be a minimum of €100,000 and replaces it with what we were used to many years ago and having £1,000. And so that would make them accessible to retail investors. I've had conversations, and I'm grateful for conversations with brokers who deal with retail investors in the city. I know that they are in contact already with the Treasury, and I know that the Treasury is sympathetic to these arguments. So there's nothing in what I say which I think will come as a surprise to my noble friend, the Minister, and I'm rather hoping that when she stands up, she will be able to say many warm words in support of both of my amendments, and I will appreciate that. But I am concerned that there should be more than simply warm words and unbankable promises about what regulators might be asked to do in the future. And so my inclination at the moment is that legislation would be a jolly good way forward. And with that, my Lords, I beg to move.
27, and insert the words as printed on the marshalled list.